Hello everyone, this is Speaker Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you, and we give some reflection and pause on the very sad news that acclaimed director Richard Donner has sadly passed away at 91 years old. His passing was confirmed late on Monday evening, and as of yet it hasn't been disclosed as to the actual cause of death. Now, born on the 24th of April 1930, Richard Donner went on to become one of the most well-respected and revered movie directors. He initially started on television shows, working on many of the most famous television shows throughout the 1960s, including the likes of The Fugitive, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., Kojak and Twilight Zone. But it was really, as I mentioned before, his reputation as a movie director that really cemented his place as one of the most famous names within the entire industry. And we look at his movie career overall, where he really proved to be a very versatile movie maker, covering many genres and making some truly cultural and significant movies that I can fondly remember the impact of those films growing up throughout the 1980s. We look at his overall career, and the first entry, of course, was his breakthrough movie, which was the supernatural film The Omen, released in 1976, an intense horror movie starring Gregory Peck, following the story of parents adopting an infant child, later on discovering that he is the Antichrist. That was a very big horror film at the time, spawning a whole host of sequels, of which my favourite is probably The Omen 3, but at the end of the day, The Omen was a very big movie and very influential in forging the career of Richard Donner in his early stages. We then of course go on to 1978 and the landmark film Superman the movie. We can spend endless hours talking about this film so much. Still today one of the greatest comic book movies of all time, with the iconic benchmark interpretation of Christopher Reeve in the lead role. And Richard Donner, he really paid proper respect to the character and the source material by taking the character seriously, instilling so much of that epic scope and gravitas, also introducing a lot of beauty, charm and romanticism throughout the film. It truly is a marvellous film, and it was one of the highest grossing films of that particular year. And the likes of Kevin Feige, who we all know is the architect of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, has referred to Superman the movie as simply the perfect superhero origin. And this of course leads us on to Superman 2. We all know the story following this film. The first two movies of course were being filmed back to back, completing most of the sequel before coming into conflicts with the producers, the Salkind brothers. Richard Donner was eventually fired from the show, and Richard Lester was brought in to add reshoots and take away certain segments of Richard Donner's vision. But later on in 2006, his vision was originally restored, and whether you prefer his vision or Richard Lester's film, I think we can all agree that Superman 2 still remains superior to the first film and another epic, grandiose comic book adventure. We then go on to 1986, and with the Goonies, a very special for me and a lot of people growing up in that golden era of mainstream movies in the early to mid 80s, focusing much more on that innocent sense of fun and adventure and escapism. And Goonies emphasised that so much when we follow the story of young kids going on a great journey of discovery and trying to uncover a pirate's treasure. I've got so many fond memories of the Goonies. Just really appealing and accessible overall, and like I said, really a reminder of those great timing films where we could go into them and just watch and enjoy them or not enjoy them, and not have to worry about certain narratives and dramas going on that we see today throughout social media. We then go on to his second culturally transcendent movie, and that is of course Lethal Weapon in 1987, pairing together the mismatched cops of Roger Murtaugh and Martin Riggs, iconically played by Danny Glover and Mel Gibson. Now, despite there being many buddy cop movies before, Lethal Weapon really changed the genre by in many ways subverting the conventions, by having the black cop being the one who was revered and the respected individual, and the white cop being the more feared outcast and recluse within society. But what made Lethal Weapon so special is that it never played on the racial difference between the two characters. It focused a lot more on their personalities and their brotherly bond formed by their chemistry together, and that's what made the movie so special. The true magic is watching both Riggs and Murtaugh really form together their relationship as they investigate several cases. And this is something that so many media and movies and entertainment could really learn from today, is that not playing on the obvious social conventions within the movie and just focus a lot more on story, plot and characterization. And this is what makes Lethal Weapon so special. Along with the lean action and pacing, it truly was a massive hit within 1987, spawning one of the most successful cop franchises of all time. And despite liking all 3 sequels which Donner directed as well, I still say that the first film remains the best within all of the franchise. Other notable entries throughout Donner's career include the fantasy Lady Hawk in 1985 starring Rutger Hauer and Michelle Pfeiffer. Later on, again, as we all fondly remember, Scrooged in 1988 with Bill Murray as a TV executive visited by various ghosts. This is very much of a modern day interpretation on the classic Christmas Carol, a much more of an easy comedic tone, once again emphasising how versatile Richard Donner was as a director. He later on re-teamed with Mel Gibson in the 1994 update comedy western Maverick, starring again James Garner and Jodie Foster. And of course, we focus on his last movie credited as a director, 16 Blocks, starring Bruce Willis as a jaded cop protecting a corruption witness in Mos Def. And for me, this is a very underrated film. Very good suspense and very good tension sustained by Richard Donner in making this overall film. It's a very fine movie overall for a very competent and accomplished movie director, as I said before. And I think if you're going to go out in terms of a final movie within your career, you can do a lot worse than 16 Blocks. Okay, it didn't get the attention of the likes of Die Hard, let's say, or Lethal Weapon, but no doubt about it, that's a very fine film and a very fine conclusion, I think, to Richard Donner's career overall. So once again, just very sad news, and I think for me a reminder that we have to really appreciate all of these legendary actors and directors of the yesteryear while they still remain with us, because as we see now the supposed downturn in theatrical releases and we move ever to the streaming wars, we really do have to appreciate how well people like Richard Donner produced in their prime of their careers, the great movies and great franchises that they gave us over the course of many decades overall. And whilst I don't mean to be over pessimistic, it's very hard to see in the next coming of years when will we see the next version of the likes of Richard Donner giving us such cultural impactful movies such as Superman the movie and Lethal Weapon as well. So just very sad news. Very sad reflections on a truly great and respected director in Richard Donner. You very rarely heard any negative or bad things said about the director from any other previous directors or actors within the industry as well. He seemed to have always a very grounded and sound reputation, bolstered again, as I mentioned before, by the high quality work within his cinematic career overall. So those are my thoughts and feelings on a very sad and tragic passing of Richard Donner, passing away from us from 1991, a very classy, versatile and very high quality director, giving us some truly cultural, impactful and important movies overall. Let's just take a minute as we come to the end of this video to pay respect to a great filmmaker and a great individual in Richard Donner.